I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all of the difference. Buckle up now and get ready for the ride. It's time to go down the road less traveled. Good evening, everyone. I am your humble host, Mr. Dennis Carroll, and this is The Road Less Traveled. Welcome aboard. Get ready for the journey. We're gonna get some interesting stuff tonight. And here is my other co-host, Mr. Gerald Fountain.
Hello.
Yes, sir. How's it going, sir?
Good. Just saying hi to
Yes.
everybody in chat, trying to keep up.
Oh yeah. Staying warm up that way?
Oh, yeah. It's going to dip down again. We're supposed to get another polar vortex coming through, I guess. We didn't do so bad on the last one. We missed the snow and ice and everything.
Yeah, this big old full moon, wolf moon sky tonight. It's a perfect night for our subject, Gerald. Goblins.
Oh.
It's gonna get spooky around here. We got a goblin problem here, folks. We got goblins for you tonight. All right. That's a very interesting subject. I have studied and researched goblins for a long time. And it is a very popular subject, and it has a lot of different rabbit holes, definitely. We're going to get to that shortly. Want to welcome everybody in the chat room. Somebody named Midwest Night Watchers in here. I don't know who that could
Ooh,
be.
better watch him.
Somebody. And we got Miss Crystal Carol Cleveland and her husband, Mr. Philip Cleveland. And we have Tammy Johnson and Susan. And we have Monica. Hello, Monica. We've got Ida and Shiro. Hello, Shiro. And welcome aboard to Maria. Roger Blair. Come on, boy, we're filling up good tonight here. The girl and her gong, the gunslingers in the house here. And see who else we got coming up here. All right. I'm checking it out. Well, it's moving fast tonight.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Sweet Pea. Hello, Sweet Pea and Catherine. All right. And the Wizard Moon. Yeah. That sounds like a novel I need to write one day. It was a dark and cold night of the Wizard Moon. Okay.
Oh, the wizard moon.
Yeah, tonight we're going to be talking goblins. And, goblins are deep in our culture. They go in many different ways. I think that they are basically symbols in many ways of elemental spirits in some ways. But I've heard of goblins my whole life. Since when I was a little kid, we heard about goblins this, goblins that. And also, they're very well known now thanks to the Lord of the Rings movies.
Right.
And J.R.O. Tolkien had a problem with the goblins, okay? I'm going to explain this to everybody. There is a goblin problem. Goblins cannot come out in daytime. They only come out at night. And so J.R.O. Tolkien said, well, that's not going to work for my story, So what he had to do was create a new goblin called the orc. And the orc can travel in daytime, okay? And so he solved that problem, but he had to rename it the orc. So you get an orc from goblins. And I think there's something else you can mix them with, but you get them from goblins. But they're not goblins because goblins cannot come out in daytime. They're sort of like vampires, so to speak. They can't take the daytime. So he came up with orcs. Or the Urukai, as they're called.
Oh.
which was supposed to be a race. He invented a race that interbred with goblins, and they got the orcs. Okay, but that solved his goblin problem. So, what do you know about goblins, Gerald?
Like you know, they were in. I don't know if you necessarily want to call them nursery rhymes, but they were in our childhood stories. They were always mentioned during Halloween. They were brought up in movies, especially in the comic books of Spider-Man. You know, it had the Goblin and the Green Goblin specifically, but they just been everywhere in our culture. And if you want to blame something on somebody, you always say the Goblins. You know, but you know, present day, you know, when Gremlins came out, we blamed the Gremlins, and somehow I think the Gremlins and the Goblins are kind of the same thing, but we just put different terms on them, just like we do with goblins and elves and fairies and elementals. I think we're using all these terms to cover it, even though they should be separate.
Mm-hmm. Well, now, you know, goblins have been described in many different ways down through the centuries. One of the most ambiguous ways of describing goblins as sort of being just great big black things. They were sort of kind of like shadow people in a way, but they were more monstrous in that respect. So these black things supposedly could grab you, you know. And what the thing is that they were death on children. Now, goblins have been involved over the years in a lot of kidnapping of children or child abduction. So if you always heard, grandma say, if you don't be good now, what? The goblins will get you.
Right.
That's so that was sort of like, saying, hey, there's an enforcer here we're talking about, and they're the goblins. And they're often described in folklore as just great big black shapes. But also there are some descriptions of them being more like the Gremlins. You remember the movie Gremlins?
Yeah.
It'll be more like them in a way. But goblins are just monstrous looking things. They are monsters. That's basically what they are. And but like I said, they can only come out at night. Supposedly, if you capture a goblin out in the daytime, he will turn to stone.
Oh, I've never heard that.
So that's why they supposedly won't come out. But now they share that same trait with trolls. Trolls will also supposedly, if they're caught out in daytime, will turn into stone as well. So they may be kin to each other. They may have some kind of blood kinship going on there between trolls and goblins.
See, that's what I think. I think goblins is smaller, almost dwarf gnome looking size, and I think the big goblins are actually trolls.
Well, it kind of looks like Dobby from Harry Potter. Remember Dobby?
Yeah.
Yeah, they kind of look like that too, a little bit. That would be what you would think a goblin would look a lot like. Big, floppy, kind of pointed ears, big, long, ugly nose on them. But now here's another popular description of them. A lot of people don't think about this when you hear the goblins. Goblins were seen in a very famous movie. Do you remember what movie that was?
Goblins in a famous movie.
Would you happen to remember The Wizard of Oz?
Oh, the Munchkins?
Remember the witch's guards were goblins, by the way. Remember how they looked? They were green and they had long, ugly noses on them. But now they were bigger than what you would think a goblin would be. But now goblins are supposed to be pretty good size, too. They're not just little bitty small things, okay? They're not fairies or nothing like that. They are supposed to be pretty good sized beings. I'm going to say human size almost, okay? Maybe even bigger. But now you remember the witch's guards. They were goblins.
Right.
That's what they basically were. And when Frank L. Baum first wrote The Wizard of Oz, he wanted to put goblins in there. Okay. because that was a childhood thing. You always hear about that. Now, goblins haunt our childhood in very different specific ways. They are found to live under beds. That's what will grab you if you put your feet on the floor at night if you're not careful, and pull you back under the bed. Or sometimes these goblins live in where? Closets.
Oh.
That's another aspect of them. But now, according to folklore, goblins very much like the Fae. They live underground in tunnels. That's why J.R.O. Tolkien had the mountain, the tunnels in the mountains of the Dwarf Mountain were infested with goblins. That's where they were living, because, like I said, they can't take daylight, so that would be the perfect place to hide in the tunnels.
Yeah, I think that's where the term goblin came from. I think gob means cave or a hole in the ground.
Yep, a gob is a hole, or
Same thing with clave or coven.
Something, yeah.
Claven, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Gob is another name for your mouth.
Yeah, gobstopper.
Yeah. That's a cake hole. Yeah, there you go. Shut your gob up. There you go. Yeah, the ghoulies were kind of goblins as well. Yeah. Yep.
Well, if you remember the cartoon, the Groovy Ghoulies, they were vampires, mummies, Wolfman.
Oh, yeah.
They were all of them. Anything.
Yeah. And of course, that's what you always hear about on Halloween: the ghosts and what? Goblins. They come out on Halloween. But they are very famous things, like you mentioned earlier about the Green Goblin of Spider-Man. He was, you remember his bombs that he had were little jack-o'-lanterns, and he rode around on a thing that looked kind of like a bat. So he was very much tied to a Halloween goblin kind of a thing,
Right.
Mm-hmm. But he made a good villain. Absolutely.
It's funny you mentioned earlier about the taking your children. That was always the not necessarily medieval, but the olden folklore was that they would come and take your children unless you did something, or if you thanked them, then they would do trickster things to you. Not necessarily evil, but trickster. They'd make your life miserable, just like Rumpelstiltskin and all them. That I just wonder if they were goblins.
Yep, and if you're not good, the goblins will get you. And what happens when the goblins get you? They take you off somewhere and eat you, usually, which is very much like what Krampus does. Remember Krampus?
Yeah.
So he could be kind of classified as a goblin in a way, but that's what goblins do to you. The goblins will get you and they'll eat you up. That's it. And that's like that very famous poem I used to tell for the kids about Little Orphan Annie. The goblins will get you if you don't watch out. And that was a big bugbear thing that you did with children. If you don't behave, the goblins will get you now. And of course, that was what they thought they inhabited, the space under the bed or in that dark closet. That was a perfect hangout for goblins. Yeah, the hobgoblin. Now, the hobgoblin is sort of a derivative of the goblin. The hobgoblin is sort of like, he's the personification of a goblin that hangs around the house, kind of like Dobby in Harry Potter. He would be really classified as a hobgoblin. In other words, he is attached to a house or a farm, kind of a setting. So, in other words, a hobgoblin might come and live with you, sort of like the elves that that help the old shoemaker out and all that stuff. That's
Yep.
the way hobgoblins kind of work too. The reason they call it a hob means simply your fireplace or your house or you lived at. That was your domicile.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So a hobgoblin would be hanging, maybe a family goblin passed down through the generations. It could be attached to your family.
Yeah. If you not necessarily make them mad, but if you irritate the hobgoblins, and that's who would hide your keys or make stuff disappear in your house, just to let you know that they weren't happy with you.
Well, what Sweet Pea wants to know, the hobgoblins, are they, Donna Lee wants to know, hobgoblins good or a bad thing? Well, that depends. It depends on how you treat your hobgoblin. If you treat him pretty bad, it's probably going to make life hard on you. But if you kind of try to stay on his good side, he supposedly will make life a little easier for you. At least won't make it so hard on you anyway. Very much like the jinn that we've talked about, the genies. Some people say they're good and they're bad, but most of the time, what they do for you is usually bad. It comes out the wrong way, no matter what they do. And so you have to be very careful how you approach those type of trickster spirits because they can screw you up real quick.
Yeah, I mean they'll start off, they'll trick you into thinking that you're doing them a favor, by saving them or helping them some way. Then they say, okay, well, I owe you this. I'll do all your housework for you or make you rich or whatever you want. And then eventually they end up turning the table on you and say that, so then they start making your life miserable.
Hello, Jason. Good to have you here, buddy. Yep. And Blazer checking in. Blazer, you're now a moderator, okay? Yeah. Here's the thing about goblins supposedly guard treasure, too, by the way. They're sort of like the leprechauns in that respect. But now the treasure that they guard is usually magical, very magical kind of a treasure, not like gold coins or something, but something like, a magic cup or a spoon or whatever the situation is. They guard magical treasures, like supposedly. Uh, that's an interesting aspect of the goblin too. Then yeah. I don't think you want to try to form too much of a good relationship with any kind of goblin. Okay, that would really be a good idea because in the end you're going to pay for it one way or the other. So it might be good to let the goblins stay where they're at and you stay where you're at, kind of thing. And but if you got a hobgoblin living, just don't get on his bad side. If you got one living around you, there definitely. But that goes with a lot of the fairies too. By the way, all the fairies. Supposedly, you're supposed to leave them little scraps of food every now and then. You're supposed to make life easier for them in many different ways to stay on the good side of the fairies. Was always something people tried to do. They didn't want to get them mad at you, kind of a thing. And since these are elemental air spirits, it might not be a good idea to get them mad at you. In that respect, you might pay for it in a bad way.
Right. That's the thing though. I mean, they all have these same commonalities, common things in
Yeah.
describe them. The elves, the gnomes, the goblins. They all have, they're trickster spirits. They can do magical things. They can disappear and appear whenever they want. They can give you gifts. They can, so a lot of time, I think, like I said earlier, I think people misconstrue what an elf is compared to a gnome, compared to a goblin, compared to an elf.
Well, you have the house elves. You have the elves that make cookies in the trees. You got some of them. Elves are very magical beings that are very deep into the fae. the Fey realm of the world of magic. The elves are not fairies though. There's a difference, big difference, and it's like you said. There's a big difference too, also between the gnomes. Gnomes are different than elves. You know, you got some distinct differences in these things. So that would be another way you really tick them off if you misidentified them. You know, I don't think they would like that either. But the interesting thing about elves are more like, to me, from what I've read about them and studied on over the years, they're more like elemental type spirits. They are connected to what we call earth magic, which is, earth, wind, fire, um, water. They are attached to different elements of the earth itself. The elves are supposed to be attached to the earth itself, more like the land,
Right.
yeah, than anything else. Then you would have the fairy spirits. So they're more like the fire, kind of the fire element of that, or the air element. So each one of these things corresponds to a different element of earth magic. And that's how you supposedly classify these things.
Right. I mean, you got water sprites, you got tree
Yeah,
fairies,
water
tree
sprite.
elementals. I mean,
Yeah,
like you said, the fire, the wind.
and then you have the woodland sprites. They live in the trees, and they actually have homes in the trees, supposedly.
That'd
The
be
list goes on
keeblers.
and on. They're attached to different types of the earth magic itself. Um, some of the most elemental like are some that might be attached to like the very energy of the earth itself, like lightning or fire in some ways and stuff like that. So they could be very powerful. That's what I've said about this before over the years, and I've studied a lot about elemental spirits. They can be some of the most dangerous spirits that you will run into because they are very powerful, very, very powerful, because their power is attached to the energy of the earth itself, or what we call earth magic. The old people called it earth magic. We call it energy because we have a different name for it now. But we call it energy. But this is what it basically is, earth energy. And look at earth energy. Look at the wind. Look at water. Look at earthquakes. Look at lightning. The list goes on and on. You've got some very powerful energy here.
Right. Sweet Pea asked a question if there was any current sightings of goblins.
Oh, yeah.
Because we always talk about them being in olden days or, childhood stories, but is there any current things that we can contribute to goblins?
A lot of people have reported encountering goblins in modern times. Um, Supposedly, there again, like I said, they can be like these shapeless black masses type things. They can grab you or whatever they're going to do to you, but they can also sometimes appear very much just like monsters. What you would typify as a typical monster: big nose, ugly looking face. A butt ugly looking thing. Okay, but and that would be your typical goblin. And some people who have encountered these things can only say, "Hey, well, it must have been something very much like a goblin or something like that." Here's the thing about goblins: they're very ambiguous. They go over different descriptions or different, I don't know, ways of being. They can be like a shadow person, or they can also take on more of a form to them. Uh, like I say, you've got to have some kind of form if you turn to stone in the daytime. You know, in that respect. So I think goblins are very elemental
Right.
and can appear when they need whatever form they need to appear in sometimes. But there are reports of, matter of fact, I have a good friend who, when he was a kid, actually saw something It was one of the little people, we call them. We call them little. It's not a leprechaun, though. This sounded more like your traditional goblin that he saw. And he went down a hole in his yard. And he was a young boy. He was probably, I think, about 10 years old when this happened. And he actually tried to dig it out of that hole that he went down in the ground with. But he was unsuccessful, of course, which is probably a good thing. He was unsuccessful in that respect. But the description he gave me, it sounded what else could it have been but something very much like a goblin. Because he said it was squat looking and had a big nose, had an ugly face, big ears and then he was and it didn't have any hair on it. It was hairless kind of a thing. And the description, not to sound mean, but it sounded like a hairless chihuahua looking thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And to me, that's gonna work for a goblin until the real thing comes along. If that's not the real thing,
Now, here's another one. Susie G wants to know: is there any hot spots in the country to view elves? Is there anywhere in the U.S. or anywhere that we could go look for elves?
Well, you will find a lot of these things in certain places, like copse of trees where there's a lot of trees, or maybe in a field or something. You will find some of these things around mounds. We've talked about the mounds. There's a certain magic to the mounds. There's a lot of this connected to the mounds that you find. There can also be some connections with ruins, like the ruins of old buildings or castles or houses or whatever. These things seem to hang around ruins. Matter of fact, where my friend saw that one was very close to where there was a ruined house. So these things hang around in places like that, desolate places, you might say. That's where you would more likely encounter something like that, especially if it's an old, ancient kind of a place, where the trees are very big and old. And you have, of course, sightings of fairy rings. I don't know if some of you are familiar with fairy rings, but they are certain places where mushrooms grow in a ring, supposedly, or there's a different kind of a texture to the grass or where it grows. There's actually a ring like there. That's supposed to be a sacred site for fairies, goblins, and stuff like that. And supposedly, according to legend, goblins meet at midnight in fairy rings to plot bad things. Supposedly come up with bad plans to make life hard on people or whatever the situation. That's where they're supposed to meet.
She refined her question or clarified it. She meant, is there any states or regions where you would be able to find more sightings of them?
Well, that would be around probably wherever there's lots of mounds, places like that, cemeteries, and stuff like that. Some of the more, I would think, the more
I'd say Appalachian Mountains
would be on the East Coast. There's a lot of mounds, but there are some mounds out southwest too, by the way.
Right.
Yeah.
I would think the Appalachians would be heavy with them.
Yeah, the Appalachians would definitely. Any kind of mountain ranges are where these things are. Something. Mountains, I'm going to tell you something about mountains. Mountains and mountain ranges are seem like the perfect catalyst for supernatural stuff. You have a lot of sightings of these things around mountains. You have a lot of ghost lights that are seen. And that's another thing about goblins and stuff like that. They are supposedly seen around corpse lights or ghost lights that are seen in the woods or in the mountains or in mountain passes. Wherever you ever see any of those around, that's another hot area for goblins.
Oh. Now, Let
It
me
says that
find it.
He says mounds are bot states, mounds are hills or mountains. Mounds are what I'm talking about, old burial mounds or connected to the indigenous peoples. A lot of these mounds, we don't even know who built them. We don't even know about these people. They're very ancient people. So the mounds are very ancient places, supposedly of dark magic.
Oh. Now, Sweet Pea wants to know if what you think pug wedgies are. Are they a type of goblin?
Puck wedges they may fall into the the goblin classification. Definitely, they're mean enough. Absolutely, they're very mean, and that also goes with uh, the the windows, the windows that you hear about in South America. That is Spanish for goblin, by the way. Duendes,
Oh,
uh, or evil spirit. And that's what another thing supposedly that a goblin is just another name for supposedly an evil spirit. And if that is the case, then it would definitely be demonic, would it not?
yeah, if it's evil.
Well, now the goblins have a glamour too. All the fey kind of things, and that includes vampires, werewolves, etc. All supposedly utilize glamour because it is a magical thing, and what it is changing your perception of reality. That's what magic is all about. No matter if it's a fairy doing it, or a goblin, or a vampire, whatever the situation is, magic is simply changing your perception of reality, getting you to see what they want you to see, whether it's really there or not. That's changing your perception of reality. That's not good thing. That's never a good thing to do to anybody under any circumstances, is to mess with their perception of reality, because really that is the ultimate lie that you can tell somebody, you know. And if I am as ugly as a bug, and I get you to see me differently as something else, I am really pulling a big trick on you. Okay,
Ah,
I'm really doing it to you. I'm sticking it to you. Okay, and that's the way these things are doing. They can although they can look awful or horrible looking, they can get you to see them as something nice looking, something very attractive. That's the way vampires work too, by the way. That's the way the fairies supposedly work. That's why they use the glamour on you. You know, it's kind of the glamour shots that women have. You know, women want to put her makeup on, get herself glamorized, something. But she is actually changing your perception of reality.
right.
Okay,
I mean,
when you put
even
on
Disney,
makeup, you do that, and
even
that's the
Disney
same thing.
movies show that.
Tonight, if I were to put on clown makeup right now, I'm changing your perception of me. You probably might be scared of me if you don't like clowns, okay? Or you might think I'm real funny if you like clowns. It depends on your perception, does it not? But when I put that makeup on, I become something else. Don't you understand? It's just like putting a mask on. When you put a mask on, you become something else other than what you were, or you look that way anyway. You know what I'm saying? That's what the glamour's all about.
I was just gonna say, even Disney in the movies for the kids, or if you want to call them kids movies, where the witch is usually this not necessarily beautiful, but could be just a normal looking, older, like granny looking. Then all of a sudden, the next time you see her, there's dark lights behind her, and she's got a wart on her nose. And
That's right. That very famous line in the Wizard of Oz where, Dorothy says, "Well, witches are ugly, old and ugly, And Glinda has to laugh at her. She says, "Because I'm a witch, and I'm not old and ugly."
yeah, what kind of witch are you?
So that was sort of what, a biased thing, wasn't it? All witches may not be old and ugly, okay? That don't mean that they can be any less evil than they might be, though. They might be more evil just because they don't look like it. I think it's a bridge day over so you can swim back up and sure no one's in the house. Everyone is out. All the lights are on and the blinds are down. Well, I'm reading what Laser's got to say about that. Either. But yeah, there are certain things you can do to keep you safe from the goblins bothering you. There are certain things you can always carry a piece of iron in your pocket, whether that's like a nail or something like that. Goblins hate iron, by the way. And I think in one of the references in the Lord of the Rings, a goblin is killed with an iron sword. Iron is supposed to be dead against fairies and goblins and evil stuff like that. So if you carry a piece of iron with you at all times, you will probably not be bothered by goblins. Same thing with witches too, by the way. But there are other things you can do to also ward the goblins away from you. You can carry a sprig of rosemary in your pocket.
Oh,
rosemary is considered a very holy type herb, and supposedly goblins and fairies don't like to smell too much of rosemary.
oh wow.
It's kind of like garlic with vampires.
Now I had heard why people used to or still do put crucifixes in their houses was to ward off evil spirits like goblins and all them.
Oh yeah, yeah, and an iron cross is the best, by the way. Absolutely. There you go, iron again. That used to be that old thing about horseshoes. Hanging a horseshoe over the door. That's a piece of iron, by the way. That's why it's not. It's got nothing to do with a horse or a shoe. The shoe on a horse. It's iron. That's the main thing. And and there's a different way you hang it up too. A lot of people hang it up upside down wrong and have the points down. Well, actually, what you're supposed to do is put it up sort of like a C, sideways, like
sideways.
Mm-hmm. That's supposed to keep bad luck out.
Oh, see, I thought a horseshoe was supposed to be hung upside down and collect all the bad luck.
Supposedly, to kill a goblin, if you can't drag him out in the daylight, you can behead him. Supposedly, that will kill him. Of course, that usually works on most anything. When you behead it, it usually does the job. And that's the way it goes with the goblin. But now, it would be better to just like cut his head off and then expose him to daylight and have him turned to stone anyway, just to be on the safe side. That's what I would do anyway.
Yeah, that's funny. I always heard that you're supposed to hang a horseshoe upside down so that the U is up and it collects all the bad luck.
Yeah, well, see, that's usually I read about this too. Usually, I always thought you put it up like a U, but no, you're supposed to put it sideways. That's what it says. Now, I mean,
huh?
Like
what about
like it would be a C?
What about dream catchers? That
you would put it sideways.
What about dream catchers? Does that do anything for goblins?
There may be there may be different ways to do it in different parts of the country. You know how that goes. Because the Amish, the ones that hang the horseshoes up the most are the Amish and the Mennonites and all that, and they supposedly hung them up like a C. I don't know, but that's the way it is.
Huh.
But the main thing is, I don't think it's really that big of a deal about how you hang it up, as long as it's hanging up. Because it's iron. See, that's the main thing.
What about dream catchers? Does that do anything against goblins or evil tricksters?
I'm going to tell you something about dream catchers. Dream catchers are the church kind of frowns upon dream catchers because they're sort of a indigenous magic. And they can be considered not that good, really. You might not want to capture some dreams. You might want them to go away. You know what I'm saying? That includes nightmares. You would not want to capture your nightmares where you could keep them all the time. So a lot of people frown upon dream catchers. They say it is sort of a pagan magic kind of a thing, you know. But that's just some people's opinion on it. Horseshoes are supposed to catch good. But like I said, the main thing is it's the iron. That's what it is. And you can a lot of times I've told people this is what they used to do years and years ago. They would take a 10-penny nail, that's the big nails, and they would drive one in the ground at each corner of the house. Outside each corner of the house. Supposedly that put a protection thing around the house because it's iron.
All right.
So, like I said, I think the emphasis was on it being iron more than anything else. I had a poem about that somewhere. It's iron against witches and salt against evil. Somewhere I got a poem about that somewhere. But anyway, that's what it's supposed to work out. But there's horses out there that are shoeless. Yeah, that's not good luck for the horses that ain't got no shoes. Okay,
That's right.
Them definitely. That's kind of like a rabbit's foot. It's I got a rabbit's foot around here somewhere, but it's not good luck for the rabbit if you want to look at it that way. It's definitely not good luck for the rabbit. Yeah,
poor rabbit.
Yeah. That's kind of like that old saying from the Addams family, it's all about how you perceive something. What is normal for the spider is chaos for the fly. It all depends on how you look at it. See, I missed. I'm losing my place here. Hold on a second. It says, Dennis, can you pull out the iron you have on you right now? Well, actually, I do have it right here in my hand. I do have an iron right here. It comes out. I carry it in my pocket. It's an iron cross.
Ooh, the iron cross. Why was Germany's symbol the iron cross?
Yeah, that's another iron cross too. That's actually a German medal of valor, something like that. Don't kill the spiders in your house. They might be coming out trying to pay rent. I've heard of that. Yes. That's what the Bible says about the spider is the most wondrous thing. It weaves its web in the lowliest hut or the palace of the king. It don't matter to this to the spider. It doesn't care. His home is where he hangs his web, right, Gerald? Yeah, well, hopefully that rabbit died of natural causes before he gave his foot up. Okay, let's hope it went that way. Let's hope it went that way.
Well, I imagine, as hunters went out, especially in the mountains in the olden days, when they processed the rabbit and skinned it, that they cut off the feet like you do any other animal when you process the meat. So they probably gave them to the kids.
Yeah, or to the cat to play with. Something like that, probably. Or the dog played with the rabbit's foot or something like that. Because that was the one thing they probably couldn't eat, or do anything with. If you had a rabbit pelt, you'd cut the feet off of it. So I guess that was the one thing left over. You give to the cat or whatever. But now I have known witches who actually would take the left hind leg of a cat, a black cat, killed at midnight as a talisman. It's supposed to be a very powerful magic talisman that they would use. And the left hind foot of the black cat would have to be taken from a cat killed at midnight by the dark of the moon.
Oh,
It had to be certain requirements to do it. I've never done it. I'm not a witch, so I don't know. But I mean, that's what they tell me. But that's supposed to be a very powerful talisman.
I thought cats were supposed to be witches' companions or helpers. Why was she cut off its foot?
Yeah. Well, there's a werewolf story about the wolf that attacked that man. He cut one of his feet off. Remember that? And then come to find out later that his wife had her hand bandaged up. And when he checked to find out her hand had been cut off, so it was her when in wolf form that he attacked. Very famous werewolf story.
I don't think I've ever heard that.
It was a good look, charms unclear, but it may have originated from the African American magical tradition. Well, actually, it may have derived from the fact that in certain aspects of voodoo, the chicken claw is a very powerful talisman that they use. So it may be comes from something similar to that in African voodoo.
Wow.
I think that's what our friend Jessica, the cryptid huntress, was talking about the other day. Which said somebody sent her a dead chicken one time. That's a voodoo curse, supposedly. You definitely don't want to get a dead chicken in the mail. Okay,
Chicken feet.
that's not a good thing. Again, the TV show had a good take on that and love ones. Oh yeah, I remember that. Actually, they're remaking Grimm. I don't know if you heard about that, but they're going to have a Grimm movie on there or something. I hope they do remake it. That was a good series. But they need to bring the original people back on that. Well, they were talking the other day, and this is the strange things you hear about. They were talking about some of the houses in California that did not burn had blue roofs. Did you hear about that, Gerald?
No, actually, I haven't seen any blue roofs in any of the footage, so I don't know where people are getting that at.
Well, they supposedly, if they're using a direct energy weapon, also known as a dew, to start fires and all that, that the color blue repels it, supposedly. Which we talked about one time with the Hank blue. Remember that?
Right. I remember
Yeah.
the blue roofs taking part in Maui and that, but I haven't seen any out in LA. I could be wrong. I just haven't seen any.
Michael says, "Dear, why would they do that? Why would someone do that to Jessica? They do that to anybody. If they really." I warned people about this the other night on the show I did on Devil Tricks. Don't even pick the phone up. If you hear chanting on it, you're in bad trouble. Okay, there are supposedly witches going around calling up random people and chanting some kind of a spell over the phone. You do not want to answer the phone under those conditions. But you got a lot of bad actors out there that would love to throw hardship on you, no matter which way you look at it. I've had several death curses put on me. That's just the way these things go. But I think the power of the death curse is your belief in it. You know what I mean? Psychological thing.
Oh.
I need my blue roof. We all need a good blue roof on it. But the Hank blue was supposedly repels evil spirits too, supposedly.
Hey, you better paint your house blue, your roof blue, buy a blue car.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Or a blue roof on your house anyway. But I was thinking it's strange the other day, since mentioning California and what's been going on out there. We all have had, several instances where we said something was going to happen this year, and this may be the beginning of some of it. we might have a little bit more on the mark than we realized it. But you have disasters anytime.
That's right.
That's what makes them disasters. But sometimes poor planning can lead to disasters too. That's the bad thing about it. Poor planning on certain people's parts. I won't get into that tonight, but that's part of it too. But that's what happens when you leave stuff up to politicians to do. I don't trust them. But anyway, that's the way that goes. But that's goblins for you there. Yep, they're a bunch of mean little rascals there. Absolutely.
Sounds like Congress.
Goblins are supposedly they can come after you in your dreams and give you bad nightmares and stuff like that. So they can work sort of like a spiritual warfare on you. That's another aspect of goblins, supposedly.
Goblins can affect your dreams?
Mm-hmm. Yep. They can affect your dreams, supposedly. Make you have bad dreams or frightening dreams or nightmares, whatever name you want to call it. They supposedly can do that, but they can also sort of like attack you in your dreams as well. So if you look at it the right way, then Freddy Krueger was sort of like a goblin in a way, in that respect.
Wow.
The goblins are supposed to like say, and they say, according to childhood, goblins give children bad dreams, supposedly. It's one of the things they do. So goblins are bad guys all the way around. Usually, I don't think there's not a whole lot of redeeming stuff about it. Very good about goblins, actually. Goblins are gonna be goblins. That's just the way that goes. I'm checking to see if we had any more questions in here. Let's see. Anything else you want to know about goblins? Now's the time to ask. Yeah.
It's amazing, just like everything else, how many countries and different civilizations have tales of goblins and elves and gnomes and little people.
I think it's a universal thing that you scare your kids into being better behavior. And there's a boogeyman or Baba Yaga in every culture, whichever way you look at it. I think that's a universal thing with parents. All right, you better straighten up or you know what's going to get you. And goblins are sort of a catch-all phrase for that, Nobody ever says the goblin looks exactly like this or it acts like this. So it sort of has a very ambiguous, malevolent tone to it. It kind of left open for interpretation. So I think it's using the kids' imagination more than anything else. You know what I'm saying? To keep them in line, The goblins will get you if you don't watch out.
Now the rain diverters on the castles and cathedrals, some of them are goblin looking.
Mm-hmm. Well, now, yeah,
they're not all gargoyles. Some of them actually, I think, are goblins.
Yeah, the gargoyles would be considered goblins to a certain extent, in a way. Goblins with wings, I guess. They're very monstrous looking things. So there you go. They would fit the bill for the goblins, absolutely. I think it's interesting though that gargoyles, basically, though, Gerald, are described as being demons. And the reason they're on those cathedrals and all that is to fool the real demons into believing there's demons already on this church and go on somewhere else. That's what it's all about. And I've often told people about one of the old folklore remedies to keep demons out of your house is to put mirrors in your window. Mirrors facing out, shiny side out, so that if the demon comes along and sees another demon in the window, and this dumb thing doesn't know it's his reflection, he says, "Oh, there's already a demon in this house. I'll go on to the next house." And that's what you're supposed to fool them that way. Okay. So it's sort of a poor man's version of a gargoyle. Okay. put a mirror in the window and fool the demons. And of course, that's what the jack-o'-lantern is for. Jack-o'-lanterns, which were turnips, actually, not pumpkins. They didn't have pumpkins in Ireland. They had turnips. You talk about something that looks evil. You ought to see a lighted turnip sometime.
Oh, yeah.
That's a really evil looking thing. Anyway, that was what the whole purpose of that was. It make the other demons think that there's already a demon in the window of your house and they'll go on somewhere else. That's what the jack-o'-lantern's for. That's the tradition. So it's just trying to fool the demons into leaving you alone. And that is, of course, why people wore masks at Halloween. Why did they wear masks? Because they were fooling the demons into thinking they were somebody else or demons themselves. And the demons would leave you alone.
Oh.
So you put on a mask so the demons wouldn't know who you really were.
If they were true demons, I think they would know. I don't think a mask would fool them.
Yeah, probably not. But I mean, that was the remedy they had for it.
Right.
Demons are smarter than that, okay? A whole lot smarter than that. But that's just how that's why people started this stuff. They thought they were pulling one over on the demons, but little did they know the demons are probably laughing at them, okay? But that's the way this went. And that's why they would also have fires, bonfires, which the word bonfire comes from bone. Actually, they would throw bones in the fire and burn them. That's where you get the word bonfire from. But they would actually light these fires so that they would have light all night and against the darkness. And the demons would leave them alone. The demons would not come in the light. That's another reason. So you got all these traditions are geared to one thing only: spiritual safety.
Right.
Against these things. Yeah. Although I think they erroneously did it the wrong way. That was just their reasoning for doing it.
Now I saw somewhere in the comments, does it help to put mirrors facing out in your windows?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, putting the windows out there, the mirrors in the windows. Supposedly that's the. Here's another thing about mirrors and demons. Demons absolutely cannot stand to see their reflection in the mirror because it shows what they truly look like. And it's horrible looking. They don't even want to see themselves, what they look like. You understand what I'm saying? And it's not the vampire thing. The vampire thing, I'm going to tell you something about the vampire thing right quick. That's only because once upon a time, mirrors were made with silver backing so that they would be reflective. Mirrors are no longer made like that. So theoretically, you would be able to see a vampire in a mirror.
Oh.
Unless it's an antique mirror. If it's an antique mirror made with silver, then you probably won't see it. Okay. But according to tradition, that's the number one reason why these things hate mirrors is because it shows their true form. And they can't stand to see that. I guess if you were that butt ugly, and looked that bad, you wouldn't want to see yourself either. You wouldn't want to be looking at yourself either. So I guess that's where that goes. And by the way, the another reason why the mummers plays and wearing the mask at Christmas. Christmas is another time of the year when the veil is very thin and evil spirits are walking around. And that was another time to put on a mask to fool the evil spirits and to believe,
Yeah.
thinking you were somebody else.
Yep. Masquerade parties, Mardi Gras.
Yep. A masquerade, a Mardi Gras. Hey, here's another thing about the mask at Mardi Gras. You're having a big party, okay? So you don't want. Here's the thing: is the reason they wear the mask at big parties and masquerades is that you're fooling the demons again into believing you're somebody else. And if they don't know who you are, then they supposedly cannot follow you home.
Ah.
There you go. But that's just the belief systems of a lot of these people.
They were talking about mirrors and TVs being black mirrors.
Yeah, that's scrying. But I've had a lot of reports of people actually seeing images in dark, TVs or computer screens or laptops and stuff like that. Would be sort of like a form of scrying. Uh, but
Just like
it depends on what your intentions are. You know what I
right.
mean?
Just like the mirrors, the old ones had silver backing and new ones doesn't. Does it matter if it's a new TV compared to an old tube TV? Would it
Oh
make
yeah,
a difference?
yeah. But that would be with the vampires. Yeah.
I mean, would the TV still be a portal or a black mirror, even if it's a new LCD or whatever,
Black Mirror, when it
compared
comes
to
to
a tube
scrying,
TV?
the Black Mirror, when it comes to scrying, was actually used in fortune telling, supposedly being able to see future events, or contacting the dead, supposedly necromancy. In those respects, scrying. That's what scrying is used for. But I don't think there's that much of a chance of a vampire actually not seeing himself in the mirrors, the modern day mirrors, because they do not have a silver lining to them. But if you had an antique mirror, that might be a different thing. And that's why antique mirrors supposedly are so valuable. They have a certain amount of silver in the old antiques.
Right.
Well, back years ago, a mirror was a very expensive thing. Very expensive. Only rich people had mirrors, actually. They were the only ones that could afford them. The only time you could ever see your reflection would be in a pool of water or a pan of water. Think about trying to shave like that, girl. That must be kind of hard to do. Anyway, yeah, that would be the only way you could ever see yourself unless you were rich and you could afford a mirror. Mirrors were out of most people's expense account.
And then sometimes they say when you look in a pool of water that you're actually seeing the image of the water sprite looking back at you.
Well, there's always been a belief, too, like Alice in Wonderland through the looking glass, that the mirror actually is showing you another reality. So it was sort of like a portal. You know what I'm saying? And if you could actually go into the image of the mirror, you would go into a reverse universe. Like Alice did. And
Right.
she went through the looking glass into what? What did she ended up? She ended up in another dimension. That's where she was at. She was in Wonderland.
Wow.
Which
Yep.
is and here's the interesting thing, the way Lewis Carroll wrote this. Everything that Alice encountered was the opposite of what was real life. You know what I'm saying? So what she was doing was seeing an alternate reality through the looking glass. So in that reality, chess pieces came to life. like the queen and the red queen and all that stuff. And other things came to life because it was an alternate reality. Sort of like the Twilight Zone. Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
Mhm. But now there are supposedly magic spells that will actually let you step into the mirror, into an alternate reality, into a portal. And of course, there's supposed to be certain rituals that will do that. There's supposed to be even an electronic way to do it. So you got a lot of different ramifications in that.
Right.
And what is the next best thing besides a mirror as a portal? Are you ready for it?
Ready.
A
Let's go.
window.
A window.
The window, yeah. Or doorway, depending on which way you want to go. But a window would be very much like a mirror because you can see reflection in it. You know what I'm saying? So it's another kind of a form of a mirror like that, or mirror like image. And here's the interesting thing I found, Gerald. There are millions of reports, seems like, of people actually seeing ghosts in mirrors.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you be looking in the mirror and you see something behind you and all that. Because what you're doing is supposedly looking into another what? Alternative reality. Where ghosts exist, where you can see ghosts.
I like the videos online where people were.
I read a story about this. The mirror that actually inspired Lewis Carroll to write Alice in Wonderland Through the Looking Glass. The mirrors exist. And guess what? People have actually seen the ghost of a little girl in this mirror. And she looked just like Alice.
Oh.
So the question remains, did Lewis Carroll create an alternate reality by writing that story?
Or maybe he experienced
now
it.
Captured in that mirror.
Maybe it's something he experienced.
Yeah, that's weird. But that's what I've said before about a lot of things. I think there is an aspect we have to be very careful what we believe, because belief sometimes can make things so, or give birth to certain things, or allow certain realities to exist. We have to be very careful because our imagination may be a whole lot more powerful than we truly realize.
Wow. I like the videos on online where they show the people looking in a mirror, but then the reflection actually moves or does something different. I wonder if that really happens in real life, or if there's any stories of that.
I don't know. I'm sure they are. Probably. But a lot of weird, freaky things happen with mirrors. And supposedly Houdini had a trick. You remember that trick where he could actually walk into a mirror? You remember that? It looked like it, though. It was a magic trick. It wasn't really, it wasn't doing that. But it looked very real. It looked like he stepped into the mirror. But have you ever noticed? Here's the weird thing. You try this out because I've tried it myself. You can put a piece of paper up next to a mirror and see your hand behind it. Have you ever done that, Joe?
Yeah.
That's freaky. They shouldn't be able to do that. That's freaky stuff there.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how. I know there's science. They try to explain it, how it works, but you would think if something's covered in the mirror, you wouldn't be able to see whatever's behind.
I know it. That's strange. But here's the other thing. You've seen where people will actually be. Now, supposedly, let me tell you this right quick what I'm thinking about. Thank you for that sticker there, Sweet Pea. Appreciate that. Thank you, dear. Um, Supposedly, listen to this, Gerald. You can go at midnight in a room with a full length mirror, light a candle, take chalk, and go around the outline of yourself in the mirror. Okay.
Okay.
And supposedly at the exact moment of midnight, with that candle lit, you will see your image in that chalk outline. And if you watch very closely, you will see it do different things than what you're doing in front of that mirror. So what it's saying is that at that precise time, exactly midnight, while midnight is striking 12 o'clock, you can see through the portal and see the other opposite of yourself, the
Oh wow.
doppelganger of you that lives in another reality. And you can see it actually move in different ways. I've never tried this, but I've heard people say they've done it and that some freaky stuff have happened while they were doing it. But it's very much like the Bloody Mary thing, kind of.
Right.
That is, by the way, don't ever do that. That is a ritual. You don't ever want to do that because that is sort of summoning something. And you don't never want to summon stuff like that because you might get an attachment you can't get rid of.
Yeah,
So
definitely
Bloody
don't.
Mary is actually not a person, but it's supposed to be a demon.
Yeah, definitely don't say the name 3 times. I know that.
Yeah, and you're supposed to do different things as a ritual. And I say, and this thing that I'm talking about with the chalk and all that, this sounds very much like a ritual too. And it's not a good idea to fool around with stuff like that because you can open a bad can of worms if you're not careful.
Is there any correlation with that? You being in police work, where you chalk the outline of a body?
I don't know. It might be. I think it was the chalk thing is just to keep you from moving out of that image or something, to keep it stationary. In other words, I don't know, but that's what it seems like to me. By the way, they do not actually chalk body marks anymore. They do that with tape.
Right, but I was wondering, is there a correlation what you were talking about, chalk on the mirror, and why they do it for around a deceased body? Is there any correlation? Is there anything with that?
Well, yeah, it could be sort of like that, but I think it's just to keep that image at a certain aspect in the mirror. That's why you're marking it with the outline of chalk, I guess. Because it's supposed to move. But mirrors, here's a good thing to always remember. It's not a good idea to mess with mirrors. Just look in the mirror and shave and put your makeup on or something. Don't play around with them because they can be used in rituals. They can be used in certain spells and incantations to do things that you might not want to do. So it's not a good idea to fool around with mirrors and stuff like that, or scrying mirrors or whatever the situation. You just like I say, you may be opening the door you don't want to open. But anyway, or you might let some goblins in the room. You never know.
Oh,
You don't want to do that either. Keep those goblins out.
I know I don't want any
But
tricksters.
that's our thing on goblins tonight. You got any final thoughts on goblins there, Drew?
No, it's just amazing to me that, like we talked about, goblins and elves and gnomes and dwarves in our story tales or our childhood stories, how they could have came from a more dark experiences people had, or folklore, and you just don't realize that as a child, and maybe even the parents don't realize it when they're telling their kids these stories.
Well, yeah, it's very much like like saying, I think maybe some children got missing at one time or another, and they got blamed on the goblins. I think a lot of times back in olden days, some children were abducted and turned into slavery. They were forced to work in mines or on farms and things like that. So I think it was a lot of abduction going on, and the goblins might have got blamed for some of that. So whatever happened to little Jimmy, well, the goblins got him.
Oh,
That's what the one way they looked at it. But I think children were forced into labor a lot of times. And I think that was a problem that went on. I'm not going to say it was a real big problem, but I'm sure it happened, from time to time. The children were abducted, either put into sex slavery or slavery in mines or whatever the situation. It went on, it happened. Of course, goblins probably got the blame for that. But that might have been part of what was going on. And of course, the fairies got blamed for it too. So, whatever the situation, the changeling that you've heard so much about, uh, the changeling, they took my good baby and left me with a bad baby, a baby that, that's a bad goblin right there.
yeah, that's
That's a
Golem.
golem right there.
I thought I'd leave everybody with an image of one of my favorite movie goblins.
Yep. My precious. Anyway, uh, uh, he was really messed up psychologically too, buddy. Big time.
What's
He
bad? You know
didn't
what,
know they
Dennis?
were raising a serial killer. Okay. Anyway.
Talking about Golem, I mean, he
Mm,
had a split
mm.
personality. He had a dual
Yeah, he had
personality.
good personality. He
It's
had good and evil
it
side
was
to it.
bad enough that you face a goblin
Mm,
that's a trickster, but then you got one that has multiple personalities.
mhm. Yeah, well, he was all. If you remember, Golem was all about tricking people. He loved to do that. He was a very trickster kind of a guy, but he was never up front. He was always telling lies or hiding stuff. He was a very dishonest person.
And his
But the
eye,
ring supposedly changed him that way.
when he was good, he had those nice puppy dog bright eyes, and then when he changed to the trickster part, he had those dark eyes.
Mhm. But he was inherently, I think, bad to begin with because he murdered his cousin to get that ring. And that was not good, no matter which way you look at it. I mean, he had a choice. He didn't have to do that, but he wanted the ring so bad. And it wasn't, you really couldn't blame the ring because he didn't have the ring at that time. It was inherently something bad wrong with him. He was sort of a serial killer waiting to happen. But um, I think a lot of that went on back in the old days. You had people that were, not always up and up. They were not never honest with things. So they would blame different things for the goblins did it or the monsters did it or whatever the situation was. When the real monsters really most of the time, Gerald, are us.
Right.
We don't need goblins. We are goblins. We can be the goblins anytime we want. That's the problem. And that's what I've said, when I was a kid, all those years ago when I used to read the monster books and watch the movies and all that stuff. I grew up to find out that monsters were real and they are us.
Living and
We're the
breathing.
monsters, okay? But that's the way it goes. Well,
We did.
anyway, that's what we got to watch out. We got to watch out for the goblins, Baba Yaga. Remember,
Yeah.
Baba Yaga was also the name for John Wick, the boogeyman. Baba Yaga. And I think that's real funny. Actually, that does not mean Baba boogeyman. Actually, that means that is a woman, yeah, a witch. Baba Yaga is a witch. She's
Ah.
not the boogeyman. They got that. I don't know why they had that messed up, but that's not Russian folklore there. Okay, They got it screwed up bad time. But anyway,
Oh, it probably sounded good and it fit.
he said they called him Baba Yaga, the boogeyman, but
Right.
that Baba Yaga is not the boogeyman. Baba Yaga is a woman, an old witch that lives in the woods in a hut with chicken feet. She will eat you though. She'll cook you and
Oh,
eat you, kind of like Hansel and Gretel.
right.
Yeah, that's Baba Yaga. You know, Baba Yaga actually means, you know what it means? The old crone.
Oh, wow.
Don't mean boogeyman. But anyway, that's Hollywood. There you go. Hollywood's going to tell you some truths, but it ain't going to be real honest about it most of the time. It's going to come out some other way. But anyway, what have you got planned for this week ahead, Gerald?
Oh, tomorrow we have Susan Aarons, who has great videos of orbs and spirits, and a couple of her videos, the ones that I noticed anyway, that got me to contact her was she was using her phone watching orbs, and she said, if you are a family ancestor or somebody family visiting me, turn blue, and the orb actually turned blue, at least on camera. Then she said, if anybody else are just here visiting that are, anything else, turn green, and the other ones turned green.
Well, I did mention it earlier about the corpse lights. Corpse lights are supposedly will burn blue or green looking, or ghost lights, as they're called. They're also called corpse lights or corpse candles. They're really will-o'-the-wisp out in the woods kind of thing. But anyway, that's associated with goblins too, by the way. Well, that sounds good. We will have to check that out, absolutely. And don't forget, Wednesday night, 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we will be doing Hunting the Shadows. Also, tomorrow night at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will be on Bigfoot Michigan Rob's show. We're going to be talking about interdimensional wolf beings.
Oh,
You might want to check that out. That's tomorrow night at 9 o'clock p.m. on BMR. And I hope to see you there. Orbs and Spirits tomorrow. Okay, let me put that up here. A little thing up there. There we go.
then Wednesday night we'll be doing, obviously, the Night Owl Lounge, and we'll be doing another column out of Jane's great uncle's newspaper column, Straw in the Wind. And then Thursday we have another another guy coming on. He's on YouTube and TikTok talking about the Tartaria and mud floods and old civilizations. So we're going to have him on Thursday. So we're doing Tuesday and Thursday this weekend, also this week, also as special shows.
Okay. Gonna have a busy week.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll sure tune in for that. And don't forget Gerald's store. Yes, he's got a store. And he's selling goods on it. All your battling needs are. We'll go Gerald up there and go check his store out. Okay. And
I'm actually wearing a sweatshirt from our store tonight, and this thing is thick and fuzzy on the inside, and I'm almost sweating to death down here in the basement.
Okay. Yeah, that's
it is nice and thick and warm.
Yeah, so sweatshirt.
Yep, sweatshirt.
Yeah, I like
sweatshirt. They come in all. We got them in all different colors.
That's good. Well, this kind of time of the year, they come in handy. Absolutely. Okay, there's the store there. Okay, go check out that store. Thank you there, Blazer. Check that store out. Tell them I sent you. You might ask for the Dennis Carroll special, but they might not give you that.
We need to get your store up and running, Dennis. We need to get you going.
They might ban you from the store forever. Okay, don't do that. Okay. But anyway, check it out, absolutely. And I gotta set me a store up one of these days. I gotta get around doing it. I got to get done. We'll have to offer some merchandise. But I won't be taking any personal checks.
Hunting the shadows. Who doesn't want that t-shirt and sweatshirt?
Yep. I'm gonna have to get that set up as soon as I can. I finally got me a cash app. I got me a cash app. If anybody wants to donate anything, I got a cash app now. I'll have to put that up one night. But I will definitely have to get that store situated. Well, we appreciate you all showing up tonight. We hope we didn't scare you too bad with the goblins, but it was a good one. Goblins are very interesting, and they go deep into our folklore. Absolutely. And if you're gonna, have anything to do with goblins, make sure it's in the daytime, okay? you'll be at an advantage, okay? All right. Well, we appreciate you all being here tonight, and keep thinking those good thoughts for us, and we will definitely see you back. I will see you tomorrow night at 9:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on BMR. We'll see what we'll get into then, okay? And so keep the faith until then, and watch out for those goblins, okay?
Oh.
Have a good night and Godspeed.
Night, everybody.